And that's the problem with our system, is because they make such a good first impression saying everybody's guilty, and it's hard to get a fair trial. But thank God we got jurors. They took hundreds of pages of notes, and it didn't take them, 2 hours to figure out this is all garbage. This is what your justice is in Memphis. So if you're black and poor, you got a problem.
You heard your attorney say if you're black and poor in Memphis, this is what happens. What would be your words of advice?
Leave Memphis.
Do you plan on leaving Memphis, sir?
Of course.
The state of Tennessee clearly never had Hernandez Govan in their crosshairs. They let him slip right through. But behind the scenes, whispers started flying that the feds had Yo Gotti dead in their sights. And that's where things really get interesting. Imagine it. Stacks of files climbing high, witnesses lining up to point fingers, cops bragging about all the cooperation they'd secured, and cameras locking in on shady activity around Makita's cookie shop. Cars were parked up like vultures across the street before the tragedy even unfolded, making it look like the state already had Govan boxed in. From the outside, everything looked airtight, like the case had him trapped with no escape. But once the courtroom lights came on, the story flipped in an instant. Govan strolled out untouched, as if none of it ever stuck to him.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Hernandez Govan, not guilty in count 2 of the indictment.
The jury's verdict hit like ice water, read slow and steady, almost surgical. Count 1, not guilty. Count 2, not guilty. One by one, the jurors backed it up with calm voices, each repeating, "Yes, this is my verdict." The pressure in that courtroom burst like a balloon in an instant. And just like that, the final man tied to young Dolph's murder on the state level walked away free. No chains, no charges, just stepping out while the rest of the world was left spinning in confusion and chaos.
You saw how they shaded off the phone records. Where are the text messages? Where's any of that from Justin Johnson to our client saying we're going to do something? I presented hundreds of text messages where he's threatening people, trying to go shoot people with others. Govan was never in on any.
Let's be real. This is straight up trash. How do you explain letting this man walk when there were phone calls, shooters pointing him out, and receipts linking Govan directly to the ones who pulled the trigger? On paper, it makes no sense at all. But here's where the twist flips everything. Word on the streets is the feds told the state to step aside because they are building something way bigger, something that goes far beyond just one man. Think back for a second. Those early hits on Dolph's life didn't even happen in Memphis. Remember Charlotte, when his bulletproof truck got shredded with hundreds of rounds. That wasn't some random drive-by. And reports kept placing Yo Gotti and his brother Big Juke in the very same city at the exact same time. That ain't luck. That's too many coincidences stacked in a row. And it didn't stop there. 2 people tied to CMG ended up arrested for those shootings, and one is still serving time to this day. This ain't smoke. This is fire that's been burning slow for years. Even Black youngster couldn't sidestep the flames. He once had charges on his back from that Charlotte situation, and now fans are watching him quietly pull away from CMG, the same label that built his whole career. He's no longer moving like the face of the crew that made him. So why would he suddenly distance himself? Some say he already sees a storm on the horizon. Others whisper he knows the same secret Hernandez Govan's been hinting at, the kind of secrets that make a man cut ties before it's too late. Behind the curtain, the feds are rumored to be digging deep into Gotti's paper trail, pulling receipts, bank flips, and backroom deals, all to tie him directly to a murder-for-hire plot against Adolph Thornton Jr., the world knew as young Dolph. And don't think that sounds far-fetched. Prosecutors have done this before, flipping ledgers into guilty verdicts. If that same playbook is running here, CMG could be staring down the biggest federal hip-hop case ever. And maybe that's exactly why Yo Gotti's been moving like a ghost lately. Quiet, low-key, calculated. No messy beef splattered across headlines. No flashy stunts for attention. None of the spotlight chasing he once thrived on. It feels less like reinvention and more like survival mode. Because let's be real, the only consistent beef Dolph ever had was with CMG, and it wasn't no industry stunt. This was personal, and it only grew uglier with time. The real turning point? Dolph dropped 100 shots, a record that wasn't just music, it was a declaration of war. Then came Play with Yo B, and if you know, you know. Those weren't just diss tracks, they were daggers. And according to whispers, those records alone sparked pure fury. That's when talk of a six-figure bounty on Dolph's head started floating heavy in the streets. What started in the booth had turned into something darker, something deadly. Now, let's be real about Dolph's own moves, because they played a major role in how this story ended. People closest to him always said he should have been rolling with armed security around the clock in Memphis. This wasn't a secret. The danger on his name was sky high. Yo Gotti was spotted constantly with walls of security, moving like a boss behind heavy protection. But Dolph? He wasn't built that way. He moved like a man who didn't want to look scathed, who refused to hide behind bodyguards, even though he knew enemies were watching his every step. And that choice, some say, was a fatal mistake. Dolph chose a different route. Instead of ducking low, he pulled up in those flashy camo cars, so loud the whole city knew who it was the second he turned the corner. That wasn't just flexing, it was painting a bullseye on his back. In a city with one of the highest murder rates in America, moving like that without heavy security wasn't bold. It was dangerous. Almost like scripting your own ending. And tragically, that's how it played out. One trip to Makita's cookie shop, and in broad daylight, the world lost an independent king forever. But here's the flip side. While those choices may have cost him his life, they also carved his legacy into stone. Dolph never signed with CMG, never folded under pressure, never gave up his independence. That wasn't just pride, it was power. He owned his masters, controlled his empire, and built generational wealth that will take care of his kids long after him. He showed the game you didn't need a major label to shine, that independence could rival a deal with millions attached. Risky? Yes. Dangerous? Absolutely. But legendary in ways money could never buy. The painful truth is this. Now it's Dolph's wife and children left carrying the weight of those choices. They live with a hole in their hearts while the world celebrates his name. To make it even worse, one man painted as a mastermind in his death has already walked free, at least for now. "What's the first thing you'll do?" a reporter asked. "Go hug my son," he answered. The legacy lives, but so does the wound. And every day it cuts deeper. But people forget one key thing. The feds don't play messy. They don't rush. They don't miss. They move in silence, stacking evidence piece by piece until their case is bulletproof. When they bite, they don't let go. And the stats don't lie. Federal RICO cases land conviction more than 96% of the time. That's practically a death sentence. Just ask Boosie. He thought he slipped free on a gun charge, but the feds doubled back slow and steady until they had him cornered. With the feds, it's never over. It's only the calm before the storm. So what's next? Word on the street says the feds are already building, stacking bricks behind closed doors, waiting for the right moment to strike. And if that storm breaks, it could rain heavy on Yo Gotti and CMG. Because let's be real, money and lawyers might stall the state, but they don't scare the feds. This is a whole different battlefield, one where cash doesn't guarantee survival. Once the feds lock on you, it's almost impossible to win that war. Which leaves us staring at some haunting questions. What if Dolph had signed with CMG? Would it have been a truce that saved him, or just a temporary delay before the same outcome? Could he still be alive today, moving in Memphis under the same banner as his rivals? Or was staying independent, owning his music, and securing wealth for his family the right move, even though it came with the ultimate price? The truth is, we may never get the answer. But the debate will live forever, just like Dolph's name.